Welcome to Podnutz, Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 213. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live call-in show for computer repair techs. We answer your questions on running and operating your computer repair business. Call-in number is 1-888-697-0162. Let me introduce the co-hosts. We have Chris Carruthers from the Remote Support Tech Team. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing Comcastic.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I'm jumping on that train.
I've got nothing to say with that. All right, let's move on. We also have Paco Lebron from ProdigyTeks. How you doing, Paco?
Better than good, better than most, Jeff. How are you?
I am doing excellent. And joining us, Tara Gray from CompuTara. How you doing, Tara?
I'm good. How are you, Jeff?
Good. Great to have everybody on the show. Let's go ahead and start off. And Chris, since you are usually the wordiest person. No. Anyways, go ahead and give us a tip or something that we can learn of that you've learned in your business.
Just going to open my big mouth and start talking, huh?
There you go.
Yeah, no, actually, so a big thing that I wound up learning this week is that a lot of my business clients have absolutely no idea what Facebook is or how to use it, which seems like something that every business owners would know, right? Well, no, really. Like, you know, it seems like one of those basic things. You have to have a website. You have to have a business Facebook page, and a lot of them don't. I don't actually wind up finding that out until I go to install an open mesh network, and I ask them, "Hey, do you want your guests to check into your Facebook?" So that's actually going to be something I'm going to wind up sending out in a newsletter. Is hey, everybody, don't forget to make your Facebook business page, and here's a YouTube link on how to do that, just to see if I can generate some calls and help them out.
That's a great idea. Very good. Let us know how that goes too. I'd be interested
sure.
to hear how many businesses out there are interested in stepping up their game and getting part of the social media network out there. All right. And Mr. Paco Lebron, what do you got for us?
More of an on-site tip for this week. So I found, usually because I'm in Chicago and my office is in downtown Chicago, I tend to get a lot of businesses downtown, and it's a pain to drive and park down there. So I've usually used either Uber or Lyft or one of those ride-sharing apps. And what I've come to find out is there's actually another app that's a little bit more cost-effective called Spot Hero. And it's available in major cities. So this would be for all our metropolitan city people in the US. Apparently it's basically almost the cost of one ride down to any of one of these areas, and the parking is usually lasts all day. So if you have to make multiple stops in a small radius, it'd be a good fit for you to kind of do that. And I took advantage of that all this week because I had plenty of on-sites to take care of in the downtown Chicago area.
Very good. Business must be booming. Awesome. And I have a little story to tell about that. When he talks about that he loves Uber and Lyft and all that, a couple of years ago, we were downtown Chicago coming from a CompuTara event. Chris and his fiance left me for the day because we were going to drive back together. And so I called up my good friend Paco and said, "Paco, why don't you come down and we'll go out to lunch?" So he comes down. He takes an Uber from where he's at. He comes down in front of the hotel, gets out of the car. The guy takes off. I said, "Okay, where are we going to go?" We kind of decided. He goes, "All right, I'm trying to catch this guy." So he gets on his phone again and catches the guy so that he can get a lift to wherever we're going. I'm thinking, I don't know downtown Chicago at all. And so I'm like, all right, cool. So the guy comes back around. We get in there. And he drives like a maniac all over parts of Chicago I've never even seen. And we're going in and out of traffic, and we finally get to this hamburger place. What was the name of it, Paco?
It was Portillo's.
Portillo's. Excellent burgers, by the way. So we're sitting there. We go get our burgers. We go eat up in the loft, kind of overlooking the water and all that kind of stuff. It was a cool place to eat.
I completely forgot about this story, by the way, as he's telling this. So go ahead.
And so we get done, and we're kind of a little bloated, for lack of better terms. And maybe we should walk some of this off. So we start walking down the street. We're just walking, keep walking. I don't know. Chris is over in this area somewhere over here. Keep walking.
Millennium Park, I believe, by the Bean.
Yes.
Yep.
So we get to the street where Millennium Park is, and I look to my right and I go, I said, isn't that the hotel we stayed in all weekend?
And I was like, yeah.
And I turned to Paco and I said, why in the world didn't we walk to lunch? Why do we have to take an Uber all the way there?
All right. So for the record,
wait a minute. What he said was, I don't walk anywhere.
Okay. This was 2015. All right. This was 2015 before I decided to take a better decision on my health. It started beginning a more healthier lifestyle. So yes, got it.
Anyways, I'm sorry. It just reminded me of that story. And I laughed. I'm like, I cannot believe we were this close. And this guy was going all over the city. I don't know where we went.
But I do remember the story on us trying to find Chris, and Chris's phone was dead. So you were trying to chase him down to try, and so he was your ride back home. So that was actually even more interesting.
That's true.
Right.
Well, the worst case scenario, I would have just had you drive me home.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I was not going to abandon you in Chicago, Jeff.
I know it. Except your phone died. Anyways, that was fun times. All right. So Tara, now that you have had some time to think while we're bantering back and forth about the old days, what kind of tips or tricks do you have for us that we could learn from?
Just a real general one that I've noticed with a lot of techs that I work with. Just, totally openly listen to your clients, because a lot of times they will talk in language that is, not tech at all. And it's really hard to kind of understand what they're talking about and what they're saying is going on, especially if you're working with them, remotely at the time. What is going on with their computer at that moment? And it's really kind of easy to kind of guess or figure, oh, this is what they're talking about. And then if you actually do get to see them in person and work with their issue, it's actually completely different from what you thought it was in the first place. So, it's just, I think it's just really important to listen and, try to figure out exactly what it is that's going on, the proper, problem, so that you can make that proper decision on how to fix it.
Now, Tara, do you find that in most cases when a customer tells you what they think is wrong and you actually remote in or you go and see them, that it's totally different from what they had originally said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
I think that's a common problem we all have, is that how do you speak this other language? And I think we just have to think in general terms, or what I like to say too is kind of lead them in the questioning. And we want to go, okay, so what is it doing exactly? Or a lot of times in a remote sessions are kind of cool because, well, either way, live or remote, but you can go, okay, you give them control of the mouse and you go, all right, show me what it's not doing. And a lot of times then you'll see it and you go, oh, this is what they're actually talking about. Because what they said doesn't even match up to what I was thinking in my head.
Not at all. So yeah, it's really important to get that going. I've gotten, people recently have been telling me that, my computer won't turn on, and that's not the deal at all. So it's, just listen and try to get the exact story.
I think that's a great tip, because I think a lot of times as technicians, we think in terms of 100 miles an hour. And a lot of times it's hard for us to slow down because we run from fire to fire and go, we're going to put this fire out, but we got 5 other fires waiting for us. So taking that time and I'm all about that. I totally agree with you, because I'm all about that one-on-one business where you know what, you've got my undivided attention during this specific time. And I'm going to listen to you and I'm going to figure out what it is you need. And it usually goes a lot better that way. And there's a good relationship built between, yourself and the customer.
Right.
Very good. All right. So I've had an interesting week. I don't know when it was. Sometime this week, my phone started disconnecting at my house, disconnecting from the Wi-Fi. And a couple times it froze up and shut off. So I did a Hail Mary. It's a football term for you that don't know. That's for Marvin B.
That's not a computer term?
Yeah. So my phone, I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and redo the operating system. I'm going to wipe it, restart it, see if that fixes the problem. I'm pretty sure it's a hardware issue, but I don't really feel like going out and buying another phone. because I don't want to set it up. I don't want to go through all the pain and suffering. My phone was working just fine. I bought it for a penny 2 years ago. And I just don't want to spend a couple $100 on a phone. Plus, now they want you to pay per month and all that. So I go through, I reset the whole thing. Working at first, it's working fine, no problem. Put a couple apps on there. I'm not loading it down real heavy, just a couple things that I use. And it started doing it again. So I'm looking at it, I go, it's a hardware issue. Maybe there's something wrong with the main board. I'm like, I can either wait until my phone absolutely dies, and then I have no communication. Not that we absolutely need that, because I grew up without a cell phone and I'm still here. So, but it's the nice convenience, and I don't want to be inconvenienced. Chris, you wouldn't know anything about that. You're probably a little bit too young. You probably had a cell phone right in your crib. So anyway.
Dude, I grew up in the country. We had dial-up. Don't start comparing my childhood to yours.
Here's my question. Isn't this
Yes.
like the second or third hardware device that's died in your house? First is the Ring doorbell. Now it's your cell phone. Like, what else is...
Paco, when you're in this business, I can't... Tons of products that die in this house continually.
I've got one better for you. The chat room thinks that you should disconnect the doorbell because clearly that's what's causing your phone to crash.
Yes. So
Yeah.
at the same time, I'm needing to get some paperwork over to the bank, and I go to try to scan something out of my printer. Now I've got a Workforce Pro 450, blah, 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 Epson, whatever. I don't know. I've had it for like 3 years. It runs like a workhorse. No pun intended. And when I go to scan something, it shuts off. I'm like, okay, this is awesome. My phone's dying. My printer's dying. I said, okay, all right, be calm. And I'm looking at it and I go, I don't have time to deal with this. So I did the old fashioned thing. I whipped out my phone and basically took a picture of the documents I needed to, put those in my email, zipped them, sent them off to the bank, no problem. So I was able to circumvent that problem. Long story short, I ended up, my mother-in-law needed a phone. So my phone's dying. I'm going to upgrade and I'm going to get something new. So I ended up buying myself a phone, my wife a phone, and my mother-in-law a phone. And so I got a Samsung.
Nope.
No, they don't make those anymore, Paco.
I'm aware.
They all blow up in your pocket. It's a S7 Edge. So they wanted to sell me the regular S7, but it was a 5.1 inch screen, and I had an LG G3, which is a 5.5 inch screen. And once you go up, I just don't want to go back. So that's the phone I ended up with. Nice phone, nice hardware. It actually does a lot of cool things that my other phone didn't, being it's 2 years newer. So I'm still getting into that and messing around with it. But going back to my printer and actually what I did to fix it. So I left it. I'm just like, I'm done. I'm not dealing with this anymore. I knew I pulled some of the wires and stuff out because I was working behind my desk probably a week and a half ago. So I go back there and I said, you know what? I've had power cords go bad, like the 110 power cords you plug into the back of the machine or computer or whatever. So maybe it's a power cord, but let me just double check. And all I did was I pulled it out of the power strip, put it into another slot in the power strip, turned it on, and it works just fine. I scanned something, I printed something, and no problems. So sometimes simple fixes, if you just take a second and step back and not throw it out the window, you can actually think about what you can do to fix the problem. And again, I was talking with somebody earlier, and we were talking about this industry and how everybody can just Google things. And my retort to that was, that's not exactly true, because the reality is we have to be troubleshooters. And I'll just be perfectly blunt and honest. Not everybody's a good troubleshooter. Matter of fact, some people should be managers versus being a technician, but they play technician sometimes. So the whole point to that is think about the basic things that you can do. And what I always talk about is quick and dirty. What can I try right now to see if it'll work? And if not, then I'll escalate it to the next step. And that'll save you a lot of time and heartache, I think, as far as dealing with things like that. Especially when it's never one thing that goes wrong. It's like, it's all of a sudden 2, 3, 4 things that you're like, oh, I got more stuff to deal with. So anyways, That was my tip, my long-winded tip. Sorry. All right. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. We have one more week for the end of the year show, which is on 12/18, December 18th, 2016 will be the last show of the year. We're getting some good tips in. Send in your favorite tools for the last episode of the year. Get them in before December 18th, and we'll read. I don't care how many I get. We'll read them all on the show. We'll take as long as we need to. That'll be the whole show. We're going to talk about the tools and things that we use in our business, software, hardware, otherwise. You guys send in the information of tools that you just could not live without or you use on a regular basis, and maybe why you use them, why they're important to you, how they help you. And we'll talk about that on the show. So, all right. Stop chatting, Chris. All right. Okay. Let's go ahead and go into the main subject. And Tara, you are probably a perfect person to have on the show for this particular subject. And
good subject.
Yes, because I am beside myself when this stuff happens, and I don't know what it is we can do. So what I want to do is we're going to bring the subject up, and I want to kind of maybe pull some collective ideas or maybe some things that have worked for you that you're able to help your customers in avoiding this problem. And then we're going to start off. We're going to read a real quick message sent from Taz, Michael Cooley, and he sent in information about a scammer. And the subject is how to protect our customers from scammers. Because to be honest with you, I have no idea.
That's a good subject.
So, oh, you know what? And, we're going to go on from there because apparently I downloaded the wrong one. All right. Anyways. Okay. Taz, I will have to read that at another time. I can't believe I don't have the right. There was a couple documents I didn't have. So anyways, so we've all had this call where somebody goes, I made a mistake. I let somebody in the computer and now I can't get online. It's all messed up. Can you come help me? And you're just going like, oh, that poor person. But I really am not thinking very nice thoughts about the person that actually got into the computer and did this person some sort of ill will. Changing their startup services, locking them out of a computer, encrypting the computer, whatever it is. So people always, or not always, but usually know they've made a mistake when they let somebody else in their computer. So how do we protect them from themselves? And I don't have an answer. So Tara, you are what's your tagline?
The computer anxiety therapist.
So obviously,
nice.
You have to be able to calm people down and go, it's okay. We're going to work this out. We're going to make it happen. But what's a way that we can basically protect people from falling for this?
Well, it's really difficult because I've been getting these calls forever. And, every week I continue to get, at least one call like this.
Oh.
And sometimes it's a repeat issue. I've tried talking with my clients. When I send out my newsletters, I always put something in it, to remind them of these scams that are going on, and please call me first. If you're not sure about something, call me first. It's not a big deal. I'm not going to be angry or get mad at you or yell at you or whatever. But they continue to still, if they're in a particular situation where, say, they're working on some particular project or some particular file, and that seems to be when these things happen on the computer. A phone number pops up on their screen, or they get a phone call from someone, telling them that their computer's infected. It seems to happen at a time when they're literally going through, like, working on a project that they need to get done. So they're real nervous about not being able to get done what they need to do, and then all of a sudden they get this call. So I've been trying to alert them and tell them over and over, just please call me first if you get that, if you get someone calling you like that. And it doesn't always work. So I'm also, looking for some ways to kind of, I'm thinking like of somehow training them maybe,
Okay.
sending out false emails, from myself. I don't know. I'm not sure what to do, honestly. But it's just a constant struggle, and you could tell people over and over what to look out for and what to watch out for, but when they're in a rut, it just still seems to happen. So
They play on our emotions, right? We either
sure
get that
do.
call or we're trying to fix something else, and we need to get, like you said, the job done.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So, anyways, I'm not sure what to do. Paco, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult thing, right? Because I mean, even of our best customers that we think are of the mindset that they'll know what a scam will be, and they've been educated, we've told them multiple times. You have two problems. You have one where the scammers are getting more clever, and they're getting into other avenues, or they're doing other things that are causing them to get the response, or them to allow them to log into the computer. Or there are the times where, like Tara was mentioning, they don't want to bother us, and
Right.
they're in a situation where it's, again, they're playing on people's emotions. So it's asking them to do it in an urgent fashion. They don't know what to do. Sometimes they think this thing is real, and when they're in that moment, they're not really recalling a lot of things that have been said, done, or told. Now, what I've done to kind of at least assist or help with some of these is I do the typical, newsletters, educating the customers, things like that. But what I tend to do, or I rely on, is the customers that enroll in our virus protection plan. We have our RMM system that will detect any software that's installed. So typically I use a software that's not one of the common softwares that are installed by these remote support scammers that are doing this. So if I see a remote software being installed, I can contact that customer to find out what's going on. And I've actually had that a few times where it was either for work, or, I haven't foiled anybody per se, but I have been able to keep tabs on those, and the customer is aware of those monitoring, so that we can make sure nothing, funny is going on their PC.
Right. Now, Tara, let me ask you a question before Chris answers. How often, and Paco, you can answer this too, how often do you send out a newsletter that revolves around getting scammed?
Well, I send out a regular newsletter just once a month to my regular clients with tips, computer tips and tech tips. And I tend to try to always include something in there about these scamming issues.
Okay.
So similar to what she does, I send out a newsletter twice a month, and that's more of a general tips and tools. But some of the topics will be depending on what's kind of happening that month, right? I do a white label. I use a white label service for my newsletters, but I also send off ad hoc emails that may, whatever may be happening right now, like an exploit that happened or something like that, where we need to do some emergency patching. But as far as the education portion of it, it just really depends on what's the hot button that month, and we try to attack it that way.
Okay. Chris, what about you?
Well, I mean, a lot of it has to do with the type of customers that you have too, right? My business clients, as an example, they are way less likely to fall for it than my residential customers.
Really? That's interesting, because I would say it's almost the opposite.
Well, I guess that depends on how you're training your business customers, right? Because my business customers are trained that you call here for everything. Especially since we have the unlimited support plans now, they're not going to call somebody else.
Okay.
They're going to call us. Right. Same thing with our managed service customers. And these pop-ups, these scams wind up leading to a lot of MSP sales because, the first time someone calls in with something like this and it's like, yep, I've got this pop-up. It says that I have all these viruses, not to turn off my computer because it's going to make it stop working. And then, I asked them, I said, well, think about that. You have a pop-up right now with a random toll-free number on it, and it's telling you to call that number because you have a virus on your computer. So rather than just telling them that's a scam, I make them work through it themselves. Think about what it's telling you. Think about what's going on right now. this is the virus. This is the pop-up. And on top of that, it might not even be a virus in the first place. It's probably an ad that you can't close from a website that you're visiting. Right. So
Generally,
now,
that's what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I wound up, as the calls came in, and I've mentioned it a couple times in the newsletters, if you get this pop-up, restart your computer. If it comes back up within 48 hours, call me. And that, as far as I can tell, anyway, unless they're just too embarrassed to call me when it happens again, has drastically reduced the number of times that I wind up with real issues with it. And the people who fall for it more than once are the people who wind up signing up for the MSP, because it not only winds up giving them the peace of mind that we've got the antivirus on there, we're monitoring the computer, everything's good, but it also reminds them, oh, hey, you know what? I'm paying this monthly bill. I should probably call that guy.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I don't find that people are falling for it more than once. But it's the one time that bites them. It's not only is it pretty embarrassing, and a lot of times they paid money, and so they're out $300, $400, $500, $600 that they're paying. And so I have to instruct them to go down. You got to file a police report now. You got to call your credit card company, get rid of the credit card. It's a lot more involved than just them getting this. And I don't even call them infections. They're basically scams. They pop up on the screen and say, this is Microsoft. Your computer's infected. Call this number. 1-800-SPANK me. I don't know. But anyway.
Oh, I wish, you know, if that was the number, it would be a lot easier to point out.
Exactly.
But, I mean, same thing with the phone calls too, right? Like, you know, oh, hey, I got a call from Microsoft and they're telling me that there's a problem on my computer. And my first reaction is, but you have a Mac. You know, but, you know, but really, you know, I wind up asking them, I said, well, what makes you think that Microsoft would have that information? Right. You know, especially like, you know, and I mean, I'm going to say this knowing that most of the people listening right now are Americans. You guys are crazy about your privacy and security, like nuts. Like, so at what point did you suddenly believe wholeheartedly that Microsoft is monitoring your computer to the point where it knows when you have an infection so that it can call you?
You know, it's funny.
That to me is your point.
Because I was going to say the same exact thing. This is one point where we actually agree upon. Because I will tell you, we are part of the problem. We're the ones that we're the propaganda people that go out there and go, oh, this company's spying on you. Oh, this company's spying on you. And so they know everything about you. So we almost, to an extent, consciously or subconsciously, we legitimize the way people think. Now, a lot of people are, oh, no, that's not me. But we all do it to a certain extent. And no, we're bad when it comes to that. You know what? If you're online, you can have whatever you want. If it's that important, I don't post anything that I wouldn't want anybody to see anyway. So whatever. I don't care. Anything that I want to do that's illegal or otherwise, I'd be doing offline anyways.
Right.
All right. I did find the letter from Taz. So let me go ahead and read this. All right. Got a call from a former coworker and friend asking about his mother-in-law's computer that I had worked on about 2 years earlier. Well, he said something about someone working on it, and after some talking, I determined that she had called someone because she had received a pop-up that there was something wrong with the computer. She called, gave them access, and her credit card info. Ugh. I said I would take a look to see what they had done, so my friend called the mother-in-law, and I questioned her to get a sit rep. She was convinced it was a legitimate Microsoft person. Took a while before she was convinced that it was a scam. So while on a conference call, I'm not going to say three-way, with friend and mother-in-law, I remoted in. I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad I remoted in and had to ask her not to touch the mouse. Well, she was not the one moving the mouse. I figured out that when I'd watched the mouse move to a file and rename it with an 888 number, I was fighting with the scammer. I tried to shut down the computer, but was not able to with the scammer also moving the mouse. So I had the mother-in-law just pull the power plug as it was the fastest way for her. I picked up the computer the next day and scanned it, didn't see anything on it. They used LogMeIn for remote, removed the AVG they had put on. That was not one of the programs I had installed. There was also a couple of files, one that was a credit card authorization and then an agreement form to work on the computer. My guess is that they had those, so if the cops came sniffing, they would appear legit. Attached is all the info I found out about the scammer. Anyways, there's a bunch of information there, but that is the typical story of people getting scammed. And the point to that is, this is a supposedly legitimate company. And I swear to you, some of these companies will say they are legitimate. Some are based here in the US, some are based overseas, but no, this is what I do. I help people. Now we find out, okay, either they're lying or they're just some of the poorest technicians in the world that don't know what they're doing. But either way, they're not doing the customer any service. I've had people that have downloaded, get this, customer trying to get a hold of WinZip, goes online, downloads from some site, guy says something's wrong with your computer, calls the number, gets in there, guy puts all this WinZip like antivirus stuff on, stuff I've never even seen before. I know it exists, but I don't ever go looking for it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So a lot of times they're not doing anything except that if you don't pay them, or even sometimes if you do, they'll lock you out of your computer in some form or fashion. And here's another thing a lot of people don't think about. Once they're remoted in and they're looking at your computer, and I had this happen to a customer of mine, they went and said, they were talking and said, oh, here's your social security number and here's your wife's social security number. See, it's been hacked. So we're going to fix it for you. And first thing I'm thinking is, okay, their tax returns are probably on that computer. And it wouldn't be hard to either write a little batch script to look for the, a couple of tax programs that people use, or they just went looking for it manually and said, oh yeah, there's their social security numbers. That stuff's not encrypted on the machine. And so this is a real big problem. And I don't really know what to do in these situations because, again, some of these people will say they are so-called legit. Well, if you're legit, you're a poor technician. That's all I can say. So, and I hope you feel good when you go to sleep at night.
Let's think about it, though, in other terms, right? Because, yes, the scammer issue is definitely an issue, but this is an ongoing chronic problem that we as technicians have, which is user education. Not because we're not educating properly, but because users don't think it's important. Users think that it's not going to happen to them. I mean, perfect example, and I can't remember what show it was, but probably about a year ago, we were talking about security and talking about user passwords and setting up a user password policy and whether or not it was a good idea to set a stronger user password policy in a corporate environment. And one of the points that we brought up was that the bigger you go on this, the more complex you force people to make their passwords, the more likely you're going to have somebody just write their password down and tape it to the bottom of their keyboard.
Oh yeah.
Right. So, and it doesn't matter whether or not you educate them and tell them, hey, listen, if you do that, then somebody could get onto your computer. If there's an audit, then you could wind up losing all these certifications. You could wind up with all these fines because we take credit cards, blah, blah, blah. None of that matters because the user think it's not going to happen to them.
Right. Well, and that's a whole nother rub, Chris, because a lot of times we're trying to take our customers and we're trying to simplify things. And with the login on Microsoft accounts nowadays, we're having a real problem, especially when people become smart enough to set up a 4-digit PIN code.
Oh my God, yeah.
I don't know what my
password is.
And so for me, I'm like, you know what? I'm going back a little old school. Grab a little, the little black notebook and write your username and passwords in there. Because I don't know what else to tell you, because you're not going to remember them. And even though I could set you up with a program like LastPass or something, that could become a whole nother mess unless they're willing to pay for the service to maintain and take care of that, which most people are just not going to be.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, the question of what are we going to do really comes down to we're already doing what we can do.
Right. And also I was going to add on too. I mean, you can't rescue the unwilling, right? So it's to the point where we have these support systems. We have the way that we are trying to spread the word and we're trying to do the best that we can. But at the end of the day, if they don't want to take us up on the information, or if somehow, again, they're just not unwilling to go through to protect themselves, all we can do is just help them reactively when it happens and try and do it as best as possible and use it as a learning experience for them on why this should be the way it should.
Yeah.
Tara, let me ask you a question, because I'm thinking about things like newsletters, and I'm almost thinking to the point of how much is too much. At what point do people stop actually opening the newsletter and reading them? I mean, are you getting a good response from your customer base as far as I don't know if you have a way to track if they're opening them, looking at them, and stuff like that, but you don't want to overdo it, because if you do it too much, it just becomes a blur and they don't even pay attention. Oh, I got another email. So how do you do that?
I have a fairly good open rate.
Okay.
People tend to, feel excited, I guess, when they see an email from me, because I don't really email too much besides the one once a month newsletter.
Okay.
So I find that the once a month is pretty good. I sometimes don't do that though, so it's hard, to keep up with it all and everything. So, but I'm really trying hard, and especially for the new year, to
Okay.
keep that up once a month. But I think you just have to keep educating and keep talking about it, and if it bothers them, oh well.
Right.
It's something that has to keep being told to them anyway. So
Yeah, and the rule of thumb is, and most psychology majors will know this, you don't really listen until about the 7th time. So you can say something, and up until the 7th time, it doesn't really start to sink in. So
right. What I'm wondering, like, I've never received a pop-up on my screen. I've never gotten that. I've never received a phone call. I want to receive a phone call because I want to play. And I've never gotten anything like that. So why is that it never happens to me? Is it?
I wonder how, well, number one, from my own standpoint, I use things like OpenDNS. So a lot of that stuff will stop. But here's the thing. It's not foolproof, because I've had one, since this started happening, a few years ago, I've had one pop up. But again, as a technician, all I did was Control-Alt-Delete, stop the process, and went about my business. No big deal. I know what to do. But for a lot of these other people, and the problem is, it's not like people are getting these pop-ups every day. So they're getting them you're getting different people that are getting them. It just seems to become more prevalent as we keep going. And I think it's just going to get worse. So I don't know. I would say you're probably not going to see a whole lot on your own machine versus all the customers you have out there.
So I have a client who had this happen couple months ago or so, and got to the point of giving these scammers her bank account information to pay by her bank account, which she then, luckily was able to close early the next morning. These scammers are still calling her to this day, and it's been about 2.5 months now. They're still calling her on her home phone to try to get the money that they say they're owed. Still harassing her.
Now, do you guys, anybody on this panel, do you guys actually, because I've had to do this, I've had to write letters when things have happened like this, saying this is an illegitimate company, and actually fight with the credit card company, or try to help the customer fight with the credit card company to reverse the charges. Yeah. And there are times where even the credit card company goes, no, they're legit.
Right.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. I said, who do I need to talk to? Right. Or give me an address. I'll hunt them down myself, whatever. But come on, this is ridiculous.
At that point, that's when they need to file the police report and get all of that. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, and the sad part about it is that on top of all of this, and I mean, I saw a couple of people say in the chat that it's a double-edged sword, like a virus, right? Where it also is turning into a lot of business for us, but it's not the type of business that we really want.
No.
And that's for two reasons. One, because when people get scammed, I mean, it's a terrible thing in the first place. It's not just that their computer's not working and they need to get paid to have it fixed, but they've also lost out on that money that they spent on this fake company. The other part of it is that technicians who are trying to focus on remote support wind up having a really difficult time. Not even so much with the customers. That's becoming less and less of a thing because scammers are getting more and more known. So we've gotten better at dealing with that on our end. But if you provide exclusively remote support, you will be turned down by almost every single credit card company that processor out there.
Right.
Right. Even Stripe, and Stripe is the most lenient out of all of them. There's a very good chance that you could lose your Stripe account if somebody decides to fight a charge.
Right.
So, you know, it is having a negative impact on our business in general, just because of the negative stereotype that it puts out.
Listen, for those people that say this is good for business, here's what I say. I still remember when my big wheel got stolen on my backyard, and it still hurts today. I'm 46 years old, and that's a terrible feeling to get something stolen from you. No, I'm kidding, but it is a terrible feeling to get something taken from you that you have no control over. And so I don't want any human being, any person to go through that, whether it's good for business or not. It's not what I'm about. If that was what my business was based on, I would quit today. I mean, just quite honestly. We're here to help people as best we can, and most of the time to protect them from themselves. But the big wheel story is a true story, just so you know.
Oh, I thought you were fighting back some tears. I felt that.
What, you didn't see it come up right here?
What this means though is that eventually Jeff's going to get syndicated. You know that, right? If you can fake tears on the air, man, we got this.
Oh, I can. Yeah, I'll tell you what. No. So yeah, I don't know that we've come up with a solution or things to do. We've talked about education. We've talked about sending out newsletters. Maybe once to twice a month is probably a good thing. Now, when you guys talk about, obviously you're giving tips and tricks in those newsletters. Are you giving, is that portion where it talks about the scams and the different types of scams that happen out there, are you changing it up every time, or is it the same thing? And are you putting it in a different spot on that newsletter?
So for mine, we had actually one dedicated solely to that and the different types of scams that we're having from there. The other ones are just simply, again, it just depends on what's the hot topic. So like password management, you know, how to create good passwords and stuff like that. You know, and so forth and so on. So that's kind of what mine stuff has been. Although that this has been a very big issue, it just depends on what is the specific topic or what I've seen go on in that month. Like, for example, you know, data breaches. And so everybody's concerned about their websites being hacked and stuff like that. So it just depends on what's the hot topic of that month. And that's kind of what I attack as far as the scam that's going on.
Okay.
For mine, I did have like one main one that went out that had to do with that topic as well. And then I've been trying to include it like towards the bottom of my regular tips on each newsletter after that. Another thing that I've done, when something like this happens, it gets to me so bad, and you know, I think I wind up bringing it up too in appointments with other people, because it's something that's on my mind and it just makes me so mad. I'll bring it up and I'll say, you know, another client of mine just recently had this happen, and I just want to make sure, you know, that you remember and understand, and you know, always call me. So I'll bring it up every so often anyway.
Okay.
Which I think is good because it keeps it on their mind too.
Right. Yeah. Always. Yeah. First line of defense, call me.
Yes, please.
It will save you a lot of pain and suffering. Chris, I was going to say, so this is, I mean, Chris, this is, again, we talked about your business and, you know, how this affects you directly because of the whole remote that you do. And, you know, a lot of people just, they don't know what to do when it comes to that stuff. So it is unfortunate.
What
do you do as far as emails and stuff like that?
I mean, we have a general message that we give our clients. One of them being that, you know, if somebody isn't being paid to watch your computer, they can't. You know, so we've phrased it that way. We've phrased it as, you know, if somebody other than I knows what's going on in your computer, because it's usually my managed service plan clients that we're talking to. You know, if it's anybody but me, and I haven't told you that I have somebody working for me, it's fake. Get really, really specific on the way that we tell our clients. But the biggest education on it is we just keep pushing. If you have a problem with your computer, if there's anything wrong with your computer, or if you think that somehow what's wrong is related to your computer, call us. We will tell you whether it's right or not. We will tell you whether it's your computer or not. And if you need to talk to Microsoft, if you need to talk to HP, if you need to talk to whoever, we will get that number for you to make sure it's the right number, because Googling that number, if you click on the first link, it's just going to give you another scammer.
And that's what just happened to a customer of mine. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. She called HP and she Googled it. She had a problem with her HP printer, of which I told her, I said, how often do you use your printer? She said, not very often. I said, your print heads are dried up. I said, get a new printer. It's not worth even fixing. The heads will cost you more than a brand new printer will. So I already knew within seconds what the problem was. Didn't even have to look at it. And she basically had this person get on a computer, and by the time she figured out that they wanted money, she shut it down, and they changed the selective startup in MS Config. So
oh, nice.
So the computer would come back up, right? But there's no NIC card, no sound card.
Yeah.
All the main things that you could actually use the computer for. So I mean, really, the NIC card was probably the biggest one. So I went in, I saw what was going on, I changed it over, no big deal. Got it. And there really wasn't anything else on there. They just shut it down just because they weren't getting paid, and they were mean. Now, I will give you another example, though, and this is really, really bad. My mom, who was in California, she basically had a problem with her internet going to her laptop wireless. And she basically she called, I won't mention her name, but it starts with Time and Warner. And so this ISP, she called them, and I said, first question I asked, okay, listen, which number, where'd you get the number at? Off the top of my bill. Okay, perfect. Great. No problem. They transferred, not gave her a number. They transferred her to a scammer.
What?
Yeah. Now, I don't know if the person was on there, if they had, a buddy on the side that was doing this type of stuff, and they go, oh, yeah, no, your wireless is good. You got a problem with your computer. Now, how the ISP would know that there's a problem with the computer without logging in, I have no idea. But when they transfer you from that company to a scammer, it blows my mind.
Wow.
So they're getting very tricky, and it's just going to become worse.
Now, is there any chance that maybe they might have misdialed by transferring? Like, let's say, for example, if
Paco, how do you misdial when you're transferring on a business phone?
I get it. I'm simply just thinking outside of the box here. Maybe they don't use extension
numbers. So Paco, I'm going to say that I've worked for both Bright House and Time Warner.
Okay.
And I can tell you that all of the transfers are done with internal extension numbers. You have the option to transfer to external phone numbers because the phone doesn't block it, but you're not supposed to do that unless there is a specific need.
Interesting. Okay.
So one of two things would have happened there. Either that person is getting kickbacks for doing the transfers, allegedly, because there's no proof of any of this. Don't sue.
Sure.
Or somebody, which is a lot less likely, in the IT department rerouted an extension to that toll-free number. I really doubt that would have happened, but it is a possibility.
Very interesting. Okay. So there's a plausibility there.
Very scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as we try to have, this is my point, we try to have relationships with the customer so they feel comfortable coming back to us. And a lot of times there's certain customers who are like, well, I didn't want to get charged or whatever. So what do you guys do for stuff like that? If it's a quick yes or no question, like our good friend Matt Rainey says, do you just kind of let it go, or do you charge for every time that they call?
Okay.
And I knew Chris would have something. Yeah, different.
We both know that I don't like giving away free service.
Yes, we know, Chris. You old miser.
However, I am fully aware that this is the type of call that can be turned into an MSP sale.
Right.
Now, I mean, let's preface this, right? I'm not preying on anybody. I'm not fear-mongering them into it. But the pitch is, look, just restart your computer. You'll be fine, because I'm not teaching somebody how to use Task Manager for free. That's not happening. Computer down, start it back up, call me back within 48 hours if it happens again. If you want the peace of mind, and then I move into the pitch. Not a fear-monger, but a pitch. And I've hit about a 25% conversion on that, on a 1-year subscription. So, yeah, I will tell them to restart their computer for free, because a quarter of them are going to sign up.
Now, Chris, and I totally agree with that, but what you just said about teaching them to use Task Manager, I'd rather stick a fork in my eye. I'm going to tell them to restart their computer too, because it's much, much easier.
If they want to pay me to teach them how to use Task Manager, I will do that. But not willingly.
Yeah.
They'll have to be giving me the credit card number before I have a chance to say no. That's what would have to happen there.
Matter of fact, if you see files being encrypted, just hit the power button and hold it, and it'll shut it right off. All right. Paco?
Yeah. So in Chris's defense, like he said, yes, I would do it in that type of scenario. If that's an existing customer. If it's a new customer, if I'm just talking to them and they tell me the scenario and it's like past 15 minutes and they're really, really concerned, that's when I would pitch them. I wouldn't pitch them outside of, if you want peace of mind, I would simply just hear what they have to say. What's the concern? And if they're still talking about it, like if they're worried, then that's when I would talk about it. That's how
15 minutes? 15 minutes on the phone for free?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
I'm a people person.
Yes, you are.
That's one of my issues. That's where I'm getting to the point where business is business and obviously personal. But again, we're all still human at the end of the day. So there are those that need to understand that sales is not a bad word. It's simply you want to make sure you help whoever you can. And if you have something that will help them, you should not feel guilty to offer that. But it shouldn't feel awkward. It should feel right to you when you do make that offer to them.
Yeah, I don't like people that much. No,
well, I'm aware. I'm well aware.
I just act like I like people. Anyway, all right, Tara, you?
Well, for me, these kinds of calls that I get are usually from current clients. Since I don't advertise, the repair of computers and stuff like that, since my thing is more so the teaching of computers. So the clients that I do have that I work with on a regular basis, if something like this does happen and they call me up, they know that I usually will help them with anything over the phone. I'll give them 10 minutes, and then after the 10 minutes, I do start charging for their time after that. So that's just part of my deal, what I do with whether it's teaching them something on the computer or helping them fixing something. After the first 10 minutes, then I start to charge. So
okay, fair enough. So you're at 10 minutes, Paco's at 15 minutes. Chris, what are you at?
I make that call.
Oh no, come on, you gotta have it.
I don't.
What's your national average?
No. My average.
Canada or what?
I
don't.
I would say that my average is when I pick up the phone, but no, it really is a judgment call.
Well, okay.
That's my problem. I don't have a heart.
What's the judgment on it then? What's the criteria for the judgment?
When is too long, too long?
Yeah. Okay. So.
Thank you, Paco.
When is too long? I would say that if I don't have a prospect of making money on the call, 10 minutes is too long.
Okay. So would you say around 5 minutes?
Yeah, I can usually make that determination in 5 to 10 minutes.
Oh, thank you. I just took like 15 minutes to pull that answer out of you, but thank you.
Yeah, well, this is why I don't put a time down. I'm a chatty person, remember?
Okay, so yeah, any more than 2 minutes, I'm done.
When you
I'm lying.
When you pick up the phone.
Yeah. When I pick up the phone, actually, I don't even pick up the phone.
My phone
go to voicemail. No, my customers, actually, my current customers do know how to get a hold of me. There's several ways they can do that, and they do that very well. So even some of those, they get scammed too. Usually only happens once, but so yeah, I would say no more than 10 minutes, but probably around 5 minutes. And usually if you're good at diagnosing what's going on and just kind of calming them down or whatever, and I like Chris's approach too, that hey, you go ahead and turn it into an MSP sale. Oh, I just threw up in my mouth. But a managed service sale, we'll put it that way. And basically, if you do that, then it's worth the time and effort. But at the end of the day, the reality is, yes, you're making money, but you are also helping that person stay better protected. And that's really what we should be about. It's not just about the making money, but again, we can't do everything for free and be able to feed ourselves or our families. So there's got to be that balance there.
Well, and it's that humanity part of us that says, okay, look, I don't have a problem telling somebody to restart their computer and not charge them to do that. But then, when I have 5 mouths to feed, it's at that point, it's like, look, if I'm doing anything more than that, I have to charge.
To be honest with you, Chris, you're one of the meanest Canadians that I know, because everybody else is usually, I'm sorry. Oh,
don't worry. I apologize when I'm not talking to Americans.
Oh, man.
We brought him very well in.
I don't know if we've solved this problem, but hopefully it's giving you some ideas of maybe frequency to get newsletters out, constant in contact touch. I don't even know, maybe as I'm just thinking about this, maybe this would be even something. It would cost a little bit of money, but it might be well worth it to send out a batch amount of postcards to your customer with this subject. Hey, watch out. If you get a pop-up on your screen with a 1-800 number from Microsoft, HP, blah, 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 anybody but me, then just tell them, just call me right away and we'll take care of it. Don't get scammed. And maybe something is coming through the physical mail. I don't know, because there's still a lot of junk in the mail nowadays, but maybe that's something that could help too. So
maybe we should have a pop-up on our own websites that come up.
There you go. There you go. To let us know. Yeah. Yeah.
Just a flashing thing that says, this is a scam.
Yeah. If somebody could actually program something like that, if a pop-up like that did appear, the problem is, right, it's a legitimate pop-up. No different than Carbonite popping up and saying, hey, your files are backed up, or Acronis, or any other program that we're running, or the antivirus that we're running popping up and saying, everything's fine. You're all clear. No viruses found, or quarantined 14 things, whatever. And so this, unfortunately, is normal for a lot of people. So when they see this pop-up that we know is illegitimate, to them, it almost does seem legitimate.
Well, I mean, the good thing about this particular one, though, that we're talking about is that 9 times out of 10, it's a website pop-up. It's not a program pop-up. So if you have AdBlock Plus and proper antivirus or Malwarebytes, or anything that has an extension that runs in the browser, you're less likely to get it. None of the computers here have ever seen it because I run a VPN. So I have that extra layer of security, and we don't get it. So there are ways to help mitigate it, at the very least, if the customers are willing to actually pay us to do that.
Yeah, but the problem is there's no quantifiable information. Yes, I just used a big word, that basically will tell us that we're not getting it, because like I said, it is such a rare occasion that you as an individual will get it more than once, or even a handful of times. And AdBlock Plus and all those things, yes, I believe in a layered approach, but I also know people that it's gotten through every one of those layers because it is a legitimate website pop-up. And when I'm talking about, and I'm not talking about, a lot of people think about a pop-up in the middle of the screen, right? I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about those ones that come from your system tray on the right-hand side and pop up. They're not real big, all of them. Sometimes they'll take over the whole screen, but a lot of them they look really, really legit. Like, hey, I just got a notification from Microsoft with a 1-800 number to call them so they can fix my computer. And so it's hard to go against that.
Well, sir, if I could also have an opportunity to pontificate, if you have something like AdBlock Plus on there, it does block a lot of them, and you can see in AdBlock Plus that it was blocked.
Right.
But you're right. It's the problem is that people are more likely to believe the ones that are full screen because they can't close those ones. They've been specifically programmed to not close. That X doesn't do anything.
Right.
And I think that is one that people get nailed with the most because that's the only one that I get a call for.
Okay.
The other
Fair
ones,
enough.
they just close.
Fair enough. Yeah, you know what? You're probably right because I do know that some people have called and said, I've gotten this pop-up, but I was able to close it. And I will go, especially for my managed customers, I will go in and look for anything nefarious going on in the system. And usually resetting the browser and stuff like that usually takes care of that stuff. So anyways, I don't know if we've solved anything, but hopefully to give some things to think about.
I don't think we can really solve it.
Yeah, we could if we could somehow strategically find these people in, I don't know, waterboard them or put them on a bus and push them off a cliff. Whatever.
We'll just have to censor the internet. Oh, yeah. Chat room's going to catch fire in a second.
All right, let's go ahead and move into our call-in section since we're a little past 5 here. All right. Live calls are now open. You can call 1-888-697-0162 if you want to give your stories or add to the conversation or ask a question.
Gives you a chance to pontificate.
Yes. And with that, we'll go ahead and start off with an email. All right. Hello, Jeff, Paco, John, and all the listeners. Chris, I don't think you were here. We'll throw you in there too, Chris and Tara. On episode 211, you talked about your missing item for about 24 hours and found out the item was stolen. I have, for about the last 6 months, I've signed up for UPS, USPS, FedEx, and for their shipping tracking. All three of them, you can sign up for My UPS, My FedEx, My USPS with tracking, where any items that is being sent to your address, you will know when it is shipped and path and out for delivery and delivered to you. All this is done by text. You can also check it by the online tracking information in your account automatically. They are all free. However, UPS has a paid one that you can get to do a little bit more and have more control of your shipping. I found that if you get your text message with a 10-second to 2 minutes, or you get your text message within 10 seconds to 2 minutes, but most of the time I get a text before they drive off and after they scan it. So that's fairly quickly. Now, they only go by address, so if any member of your family orders anything, you will know you're getting an item in the mail, but they do not tell you what the item is or who it is for. They only go by the address, not the name. Like for Christmas and birthdays, you will know what they ordered when they ordered something for someone, but not what it is. I know it will not stop them from taking it, but you will know when it gets to your home, so when you're home, you can get it inside. Being that most of the time, they do not take that second to press that little button, the doorbell on the wall. That's from Robert's Computer Service, Robert Eiler. Thank you, Robert, for that email.
Yeah, it's actually a good tip too, because I completely forgot about that because I actually subscribed to the UPS one, and it's basically anything that's sent to your address, it'll notify you. So if someone else is sending you, let's say, a gift that you didn't even know about, UPS will notify you saying, "Hey, there's a package on this way to your house. Click in here to get the details."
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I completely forgot about that. I didn't know FedEx and USPS had that as well, but yeah, it is actually a really pretty handy feature.
Very cool. Anybody else have any problems with that? Tara, do you have any packages stolen off the front porch there?
Luckily, not yet.
It's now I've got the Ring doorbell and it actually works now. And
take the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, when people come up, I have a little barrier set. So once they cross it, it basically sets off a motion sensor, and so I see people putting packages on my. Now, what's weird is my UPS and USPS and FedEx drivers, they all push my doorbell. So I usually get 2 notifications, them walking up on the porch and them ringing the doorbell. So I'm surprised that in other areas, they're not ringing the doorbell. That just, to me, is so foreign.
Maybe they like you.
Maybe we're talking about Canada. I don't know.
No.
All right. So let's see. And Chris is back. All right. This is.
Yeah. See, now, tossing it out there,
stolen,
just real quick.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I have actually, because I'm not going to give out my street name, but my next door neighbor, I live right near a corner. Okay. So the street that I am on, well, you know what? I don't even care. So it's Park Street that I'm on.
Okay.
The next street over here at the corner is Parkside Drive. And both of our houses have the same house number. So I have had a lot of packages delivered to the other house that they've signed for and either kept or tossed out. They never give me my mail when they get it.
Oh.
So what I actually did is I opened up a UPS mailbox. So everything goes to the UPS mailbox. I go there and pick it all up. But the nice thing about it is they sign for everything, and I get notifications when things come in. So I actually haven't had a single missing letter or package since I opened that up.
Nice. So yeah, so you can get it where it's going to a locked box, basically, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's pretty cheap. We pay about $100 a year, so it's
Okay. Very good. All right, we have a caller calling in. So let's go ahead and pull this call in. Let me unmute them. Hey, welcome to Podnutz Computer Repair Podcast. How you doing?
Holla.
And it is
he returned.
Marvin B. How you doing, Marvin?
I'm good, guys. I heard my name earlier. I thought I had to call in.
Ears were burning. We were talking about you.
Yep. So anyway, I just thought I'd chime in on your conversation today about the scamming business. And in terms of thinking that you guys will be able to stop this or we will be able to stop this, I don't think so. This is getting to be a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Ugh.
And as long as people keep answering the phone and falling for it, they're only going to make it better by coming up with better scams, more robo-calling technology. And it's just going to be something we'll have to contend with for a few years until the FTC can make a change to the telemarketing calls and spam calls and all the stuff like that. I don't know what Canada's going to do, Chris, so you might have a different time frame.
the Mounties will take care of it.
I wonder if there's any way to, how many people still have landlines? And that's the other thing. So if I get an unknown number on my cell phone, I basically don't answer it. I don't know if that's a legitimate way to look at it, because if somebody really wanted me to answer, I always tell them, hey, leave a message. If you're not in my phone book, I'm not answering the phone anyways. So.
Yeah, but that's not going to do it either, Jeff, because they've gotten really good at masking local phone numbers. So you're getting phone calls from a number that's in your city or near your city. I've had that happen with the people that have gotten, scammed in my area. They just thought it was a local call, so they picked up.
Yeah, I don't know. If you come up as a number on my cell phone, you do not get answered, period. So it has to come up with a name. In other words, I put you in my address book because I actually want to talk to you. Other than that, I don't really want to talk to you. So I tell people that all the time. I said, listen, if you call, I said, go ahead and leave a message. And if I feel like calling you back, I will. And if I feel like it, I'll add you to my address book. But that's not a realistic view for the average user, right?
I always wondered why Jeff never answered my calls.
It works for me, but yeah, people barely know how to use their cell phones. And most of the people I know, especially in older generations, still have a landline. Would that be the case?
That is true.
Does everybody feel that way of your customer base?
And they answer the phone regardless of what number's coming up.
Right.
They seem to answer the phone.
Yep.
Even with caller ID. I know. Well, and how many people actually know phone numbers anymore, right? What were you going to say, Martin?
I know my grandmother's phone number.
No, I was just going to give a little props to Chris for earlier when he was stating that this is not as much of a problem for business customers as it is residential. And I can vouch for that in the sense that most businesses know that they've got to deal with their IT person. And I know that, the people that I've known that have gotten scammed have not been any of my actual business customers.
Okay.
They're either people that work out of their home or they're, friends, family, that sort of thing, but not my business clients.
Now, is there a difference? Because I know there's a lot of companies out there, a lot of smaller companies that maybe have 5 or less people and they don't have an on-the-spot IT person, or even the person that supports them is not necessarily, they're not paying for services that that person is monitoring all the time. So are we talking about bigger businesses where there's a lot more people and you actually have IT support either from an outside source or somebody that's on the ground?
I think it does make a difference if the business, regardless of the size, has an established IT person taking care of them. You probably are correct that if it's a smaller business or a large business, I know there are businesses with 50 plus people that don't have a full-time dedicated IT person. So if they're just relying on anyone to assist them, they will probably fall for it. But
okay.
If any business, I think, that has an established IT person, and they do have the established rules of, look, whatever you see on your computer, if it doesn't come from me or my company, don't do it without calling us first. And that, that goes along with everything you do. It should be the same for, if a software vendor wants to come and install stuff on the computer, they don't get to do it until they've talked to me. So that's how we handle everything.
Now, Marvin, I know we've talked about this before, but how many times have somebody moved a printer or installed something and then called you afterwards?
Well, that may still happen because, I can't screw a printer up by moving it, right?
Right. I just moved it to a different outlet. I didn't know that they were networked, and yeah. Oh, well, I appreciate that info.
All right, guys.
That's good stuff.
All right, guys, missed the show. Enjoy it. Take care, and we'll catch you later.
Hey, we'll have you back soon, my friend. All right, have a good one.
Bye, Taco.
Adios.
Oh, good old Marvin. All right. Yeah, that's a lot of good points to that. Hopefully we can think of things over time to make this problem less impactful on our businesses, I guess is the best way to put it. And maybe just letting people know. And maybe this is a good reality check to let people know that it doesn't matter how small your business is. You need some sort of IT support that you can call, and it will be available for you and can take care of you whenever this might happen. Even if it only happens a handful of times out of the year, there's other things that they'll need throughout the year also. So this is probably a good push for that type of service, like Chris was talking about, moving them over into a managed service. All right,
yeah. Or even just getting your customers used to call me first. Right. Whether it's a residential customer or a business customer, if you can earn that trust, if you become the expert that they rely on, and you can instill that call me first, yeah, there's still going to be people that are going to panic and call the number. Yeah, it's always going to happen. But they're more likely to think, call my IT person first.
Right. Exactly. Good point. All right, so let's move into the second email. And I didn't have a solution for this, so we'll see if we can figure this out, or if somebody has something maybe in the chat room. It says, hi, Jeff. I have a system with the OS installed in French. Yes, the language French. So the user is a Spanish man. He wants his Microsoft Office to be in Spanish, which I did by removing the previous one and installed a new one in Spanish. Now the keyboard is misbehaving. For example, if you type A, Q will show up. What can I do? This is from Fofana Jabril. So my first thought was, whenever there's an issue, when you type one thing and something else shows up on the screen, I look at it as a hardware issue. But I'm not very familiar with all the language packs in the different languages that Microsoft Office and also Microsoft, the operating system, whatever it might be. Does that mess with the keyboard, or can it mess with the keyboard in this case if you have two competing programs fighting against each other? It
depends where the computer was manufactured. because I have seen where some of the keyboards will have both character sets.
Okay.
So, and if he used a US OEM to reinstall it, he would probably, what Windows version was he on? Did he mention that in
It
the
didn't
email?
say.
Okay.
That's too bad.
Yeah, because it would depend. Because I've worked on Windows 8 machines in Arabic and Windows 10 machines in Russian, and I was able to use the default recovery, which took care of it just like that. Now, if he used an OEM, I would imagine just switching it over to the dialect of that language, but it would be a little bit more of a involved process with the customer when he's doing that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of the difference. You have an OS that's installed in French.
Mm-hmm.
You have Microsoft Office that's installed in Spanish. Is that going to have a conflict? And I'm not really sure exactly how language packs and stuff like that work, because I really don't.
I see what you're saying.
What's that, Chris?
Yeah, but it shouldn't. It shouldn't cause any kind of a conflict, because okay, so as a Canadian, I have to deal with this a lot, because when you tell Microsoft that you're in Canada, it automatically installs the French keyboard layout. So if I accidentally hit Control Shift, it switches me over to a French keyboard. It messes me up every time.
Okay.
What needs to happen there is that after the Office installation is done, you need to go into the keyboard language layout, which is different in every OS, so I can't tell them how to do that without knowing what it is, and remove that keyboard layout. And that's it. It won't switch keyboard layouts anymore.
Okay. So that actually is inside the OS then?
It's the operating system.
Okay.
So I wouldn't think that installing a different version of Office, like a different language version of Office, should do that. But what probably has happened is it probably installed the language pack along with it, because Microsoft always makes assumptions.
Sure.
So yeah, just remove the keyboard layout and you should be fine.
Okay. That's all I got for you. Tara, you don't have anything on that?
I've only worked in English.
Gotcha. I'm with you there. I'm like going, I really don't know.
So far.
Yeah. Hopefully that helps you out. But you said, what was the key combination for switching keyboards? Shift what, Chris?
Control Shift.
Control Shift. So that's one way. Yeah. And then looking at the US or the keyboard layout, and there's usually different, because when you install an operating system, even if it's an OEM US version, you can put it in any language you want from install.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
So yeah, I wouldn't see why. And if none of that works, I'm still going to say a hardware issue. But
see, clearly what we're going to need to do here is just get everybody used to Dvorak so that we can just install that and be done with it.
Is that like an operating system?
Yeah, because I've never heard of it.
Oh man, you guys, seriously?
It's 100%.
I've heard of it.
This is a whole new. You know what? This is a long discussion, so we'll save it for another time.
No.
All right. So one last thing, and this was we're gonna end with this email, but I think I've got a good panel to answer this question. This is from Jeremy Miller. Best newsletter alert services for staying on top of new security alerts, problem with new Windows patches and things like that. Problem is finding reliable information without having to read a ton of forums. Where can people get the best information of the latest, greatest threats to security and things that are going wrong in any of the operating systems that we run? Where do you guys go? You just rely on things like this show, don't you?
Yeah. I wait to see what you guys say.
I don't look for nothing.
I don't have a single.
Problem.
I don't have a single source. It's like saying, what doctor do you go to figure out everything that could possibly be wrong with you? You don't. They're doctors that specialize in different things. So the internet.
Wow, that was a bold statement right there. So you probably still use RSS too, don't you?
No, I don't have any feeds that come in. I on a weekly basis go through and I just read through a bunch of different websites. I look for alerts because not any one single person has everything.
Right. But what are some of those sites that you go to where you get that information that's reliable? Because again, part of the internet is it's 95% crap in 5% of actual information.
But you see, we're technicians.
Yeah, even though, you know what, there's a difference from 5 years ago to today, where I have to go down a million rabbit trails in order to get to the information that I need a lot of times, and I'm good at it.
So
the problem is,
so I'll interject in here. So basically, a lot of the sources where some of us will use either white label support services, like TechNibble has a white label newsletter service that they're doing some research on the back end. Me personally, I will reference, like you just mentioned, podcast shows. One for this particular topic that Jeremy is asking about, security threats, things of that nature, is Security Now by Steve Gibson over on the Twit network. That would be a good source for him to listen to what the information is there and help regurgitate that to his consumers or his clients, depending on which side it is, residential or business, or depending on how he wants to relay that back to them if he's doing it manually. I would focus on it just depends on the medium that he's going to be more comfortable with. So if it's audio, I would definitely look out for some podcasts that are out there. Look at the subject guys that have been around, that have been doing this. Then there are others, if you prefer articles or blogs, there are other people out there that can probably pitch or say what they're doing. But like you just said, if you're Googling this thing, you're going to run into 95% of things that are on the websites that may not add up to what you're trying to relay to your customers.
Yeah, we unfortunately waste a lot of time, and I can feel Jeremy's pain with a lot of clickbait articles.
Right.
And people that will put something in headlines that has nothing to do. Microsoft's been compromised. Really, put that to bed, would you? Just stop it now. Microsoft is why we make a living. So anyways, Tara?
Don't you just go on Facebook or Yahoo?
No, some of us still use AOL. Come on now.
There aren't any specific places I go, but yeah, I don't have any specific places.
Now, I'm curious, because obviously we're in the podcasting realm and we're part of the different communities. I'm just trying to think of how do I normally hear about the information of things that are coming about. And a lot of times it might be on a Google Plus if I'm checking that out, or quite honestly, even Facebook. There's some groups on there that will talk about certain things that are coming up that are here and now. I think that's the hardest thing, right? Is we'll find out about stuff eventually. We'll hear about things, but how do we find out about it in a reasonable amount of time that we can actually get that information back to the customers? I think that's, or even just having the education ourselves, so that if we do run into these problems, it's saving us that much more time. I don't know.
Well, I guess a lot of it has to do with really where you're looking for your information in the first place, but what it is that you're doing, right? Like, so for me, running the MSP services, running all of the updates, I have test machines that I run the updates on to make sure that it's not going to break anything. And then if something does break, I already know what Windows updates have been run, so I can go through, figure out which update caused the problem, and then push the change out to everybody. So I'm not saying that a lot of it is reactionary, but I am saying that if I don't find an article within the 3 or 4 days that it takes me between testing and live, that tells me that there's an issue with that update, then chances are there's not very many places that information is at, and I'm not going to know that it's an issue until it becomes an issue.
Right. Yeah. I think a little bit of what everybody else has said. I think I will I'll get stuff in my feeds, whatever they are, the few places that I actually hang out or see things, notifications come about. I don't really, and I think podcast is another one, because even though for a lot of people will say Steve Gibson talks way over their heads, Security Now is still a great show because it gives you an idea. This is a very, very smart individual who basically puts out the information of what he sees. He knows how to read code. He writes code. He knows all the ins and outs of that stuff, and he's able to put it in a way that we don't understand, but yet you still get nuggets of information that you can go, oh, this is going on right now. I need to watch out for that. So if somebody calls me and says, hey, here's a problem, here's what I'm running into. Oh, I've heard of that before. Where you're not sitting there going, here, let me Google that for you. Oh, man. So, yeah, the days of finding that reliable information, you got, you look at some of the people, Mark Rusinovich. You watch any of his channels, any of his blogs, any stuff, any information he has out there. I follow his Twitter feed. So if stuff is coming up, he sees a lot of that stuff. You got, Krebs Security. You got, there's all these different things that I might follow in a Twitter feed. And really, for me, Twitter is a great way to get information. Now, I've had to cut it down. I can't follow like thousands of people. So I just follow people that I want their information. The other thing too is every antivirus vendor out there, or most of them, I will follow their Twitter feed, because a lot of times when things are going on the security side, I will see the information that's coming up, and maybe it is a little blurb or a little headline, but it's a little less clickbaity, if that's a word, because these companies are putting it on for informational purposes. This is stuff that they're seeing in their labs. This is stuff that they're aware of. This is stuff that they're trying to get the information out there to help people. So I guess usually, I hate to say it, but quite a bit of social media, because there's not a whole lot of forums and stuff. There's TechNibble, and you can obviously peruse through there, and there's a lot of good information on TechNibble. You can look at the security section and different things like that and get quick information. You have to be, I think the bottom line is you have to be a good parser of information. You got to know what sounds like malarkey is probably malarkey, and what sounds like it has some sort of common sense to it is probably something that has common sense to it. Use your spidey senses, right, Paco?
Agreed.
All right. Well, I think we are going to end this show off. It's been a great conversation, a lot of good information. Hopefully something that people can learn from and get some, be better at the way they approach their customers. All right, Tara. Well, I appreciate you coming out and sharing all the information, and a lot of good stuff there. Where can people find you and what you're up to?
Basically just at my website is CompuTara.com, and Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, all the same thing, CompuTara. Gotcha.
All right. You were smart to get everything under one name. That's good. A lot of people didn't start off that way. And Mr. Paco Lebron, where can people find you at?
Here every week at 3 p.m. Central Time on the Computer Repair Live Show. You can also find us bi-weekly over at the Computer Business Podcast with my good friend Matthew Rodella.
Awesome. Good to have you, and thanks again for sharing. And Chris Carruthers, where can people find out what you and your business are up to?
Well, you can come to Canada, but it's winter, so I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
So you can find out what we're up to on our website, which is rstechteam.com. You can send us an email at info@rstechteam.com, or you can give us a call, 866-568-2813. I'd also recommend signing up for our newsletter, because we have a lot of new products that we've launched, and there's a lot of changes on the back end.
Awesome. Very cool. You can come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over at podnutz.com/Computer Repair Podcast Live. Join in on the conversation by calling in live and hanging out in the chat room. We have audio available over at podnutz.com, or subscribe using your favorite podcatcher. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Computer Repair Podcast. Send your questions and feedback to podnutz@podnutz.com. You can leave a voicemail at 1-888-697-0162. If we've helped you in any way, consider supporting this show by going to patreon.com/Computer Repair Podcast. We definitely appreciate it, and hopefully we got some good things coming up in the future here. I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on Podnutz, the Computer Repair Podcast.